Welcome back to the podcast, and we are back with the Game Week preview shows. I've been waiting to say that for a very, very long time because we've done with pre-season. We don't have to talk about transfers now. We can focus on the National League. I'm joined by Paul tonight, as always. Paul, firstly, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Luke. Looking forward to Saturday, as you are, and I think as many of our National League followers are as well. So it's done for pre-season and transfers. Let's get the real thing going.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'd say, because analysing a football game, in my opinion, is better than analysing transfers and pre-season games. But I'm happy to be able to preview all the upcoming games. It's with the hardest game week, I think, to preview out of all 46 game weeks, because we have no idea about we have no idea what we're to expect from the teams, apart from our predictions. Sides that have just been recently promoted, relegated sides. It's very, very hard to call. It's good to see also there's a lot of people who are already tuning in to tonight's live stream. Let's have a look at what you guys have been saying. I know there were a few people before the stream even started were getting involved, but the software seems to have just totally wiped that out. So I do apologise for that. But Zach, who is a Bromley fan, said, "Evening, welcome to the stream. Norwood to Oldham." If that's the striker who was at Ipswich, then that'd be a very big move for them. Good. What's this? Good evening. Welcome to the stream, Mark. We've got Mr. Luke, always Mr. Reliable, always in the streams. Hello, gents. We are back doing this again. No pressure whatsoever. Up the Heed. Yeah, that's one of the predictions where I was doing my predictions, and the day after Billy Chadwick goes to Gateshead, I already felt like I had him a bit lower than I should have done. But to then go and see them sign Billy Chadwick, well, I'm not too happy with that prediction, to be honest. Ryan Boot to Chesterfield. Yep, I've seen that. Two good goalkeepers there now at Chesterfield. Evening all, who was at George, who was a York City fan. Tom, who's a Solihull Moors fan. Hello, welcome to the stream. Maidstone fan is always here, never misses. Hopefully 26th time lucky for my team this week. Is that how many game weeks it has been since Maidstone last won a game? Someone says, cause Oldham are massive. First stream, looking forward to it. Welcome, George, to the stream. Let us know who you do support. Tom's come back in as well and said, Moore's just signed Stamen, great coach and good leader. Yeah, I've just seen that. I remember when he was at Huddersfield, he was quite well thought of there. And prior to that, at Sheffield United, obviously he's getting on a bit in age, but we'll come on to that transfer very shortly. Someone said Oldham going to play front six. Yeah, the amount of strikers they have. Paul, what's your opinion on that? Fondop, Reed, Willoughby, Nuttall, and then now Norwood potentially signing for them.
Well, I'm pretty sure that David Unsworth will probably move one or two of them out, but yeah, to have 5 or 6 on your books at this stage is always quite useful. What David Unsworth has got to do is sort of get the right mix and decide who it is that is going to play well together, if they play 2 up top, etc. But listen, he's got loads of options, players coming off the bench, depends who they're playing, put different strikers in for different matches. So if you're serious about winning the National League, like Wrexham were, like Chesterfield are, like Oldham are, you've got to have players like that at your disposal.
Yeah, certainly. And it's just been announced, apparently, according to Mr. Luke, that I hate to break it to you, but James Norwood has just signed for Oldham Athletic right this minute. So I'm sure the Oldham fans will be a bit late now into the stream. But that's a big signing for them, to be honest. Obviously, he's coming from League One. I think he won Ipswich. He was at Barnsley, he was at, but prior to that, he was at Ipswich, and he were quite prolific at both clubs. So yeah, I think Oldham, with that addition now, maybe they are capable of being in that title race throughout the season with Chesterfield more than I initially thought. Other people have come in as well. We've got Stuart Allen, who's a Gateshead fan. Another Gateshead fan. Evening, guys. Come on, the Heed. Away, the lads. And then we've had Hayden, who's a Halifax fan. Good to see there's other Shaman in the stream as well. Up the Shaman. Hey up, lads. Come on, the Shaman. George has put working fan and looking, biting my nails for next season. Hopefully another great one. Yeah, I think with the recruitment that you've made, I know Paul's got you just outside of the playoffs, but myself, I've put you in 3rd place at the moment, and I'm sticking with that. So, yeah, good luck to you guys. And then we've had Ash, who is, of course, an Oldham fan with the love hearts on Norwood. And then we've had 2 days. Can't believe this. The new season is already upon us. Yeah, it's mad to think. Although, thinking back to that last game of the season, I think it's even harder for most of you guys in here, apart from Halifax and Gateshead fans, because, of course, we had the Wembley trip. But I remember our last league game was actually Eastleigh at home, and that feels an age away. Does it feel a long time since Wealdstone were last in action?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to the last game of the season either, which was Southend away. So, yeah, I mean, it does come around quick, but when you're chomping at the bit for it to sort of come around, there is weeks where you think you just want it to start. But yeah, it does seem a long way off, and we haven't had the best of summers recently, have we, in terms of weather? So it's not like we can preoccupy ourselves with anything else.
Yeah, I know. It's just, yeah, weather-wise. Up here, you can probably see the sun shining on me at the moment. It's been a bit better today. I know a few Bromley fans have been asking about that. Is the game going to be on? I would expect it to be on. But 2 times this week, I've wear 2 pair of white gazelles out walking. And, yeah, I've ruined them both at the moment. So, yeah, that's how my week's gone at the moment. So, yeah, that's basically what I'm having to do at the moment. But, yeah, it's good to see that everyone is tuning in. Brad, I think it is, who's a Shots fan. Good to see an Aldershot fan in. Shots fan, and looking forward to seeing the lads prove many people wrong. Yeah, no, a lot of people have got you very low down. And I am a big fan of that manager. You know, I've seen him on Twitter. I think he's quite active himself on Twitter. And I think it is quite interesting. You know, he seems to be quite confident that he can take this Aldershot side further up the league than where they have been for the last couple of seasons, because I'm sure me and Paul will both agree we think Aldershot should be a side that should be aiming for the playoffs with the fan base that they've got, the history behind them. They shouldn't be a side that are aiming to survive every season. And it does feel like with this appointment now, although we've both still put them quite low down, it does feel like Widrington means business with Aldershot this season. Hayden's put, proper glad we have signed Evans, Luke. Got a feeling he's going to be a great for us this season. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. I know with Halifax, and Paul, I'm sure you'll give your opinion on this in a second, but we never sign the big names. We're not like your Workings or your Barnets. We sign players that were unproven at lower leagues or players that have fallen out of the EFL. And our scouting network, to be honest, when we sign these Evans, Hotties, or even if we look back to when we signed Senior, Earring, Billy Waters, even prior to them coming to Halifax, they weren't big names. Once they left Halifax, they certainly was. And this is where I feel they like to be Evans, Hottie will be again. What's your opinion on that, Paul? When you see Halifax, I know since Wealdstone have entered the division, you've probably seen a lot of players depart from Halifax, and every season, everyone seems to think they're going to struggle. They've lost Earring, they've lost King. Next season, they're going to struggle. They've lost Waters, they've lost Green, Ma. This season, the same again. Manny Disaruwe's gone. What's your opinion on that and the recruitment that we replaced them with?
Well, I think, the benefit that Halifax have is they've got a bit of recent history in the league. They're I would suggest should be one of the bigger clubs in the league. So you're always going to attract. I think you're always going to attract players. You're in that northwest pocket, aren't you? Where there's a lot of football teams, EFL, Premier League, EFL down, where you can attract players from that area and maybe further north. So I think the challenge that any manager has that has a club like Halifax is having to go again every season and find new players. Alan Devonshire down here at Maidenhead is a prime example. You're constantly having to find new players, rotate your squad, bed them in, and the continuity then isn't there. And I suppose you see that, Luke, in the inconsistency of the team, hence why they don't finish higher than they do. Fortunately last year, you guys had a good. You had a cup team, you had a cup run, and deservedly got to Wembley and won the trophy. So I think it's testament to the football club that they can keep finding these players and keep balanced in and around where they do. Yeah. The holy grail is going that next step. Should there be more investment? Should be there less selling? should we keep players on longer contracts? They're the sort of $1 million questions, really.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that with Halifax, because I'm sure, Hayden, I'm sure you'll have an opinion on this, and any other Halifax fans who may be watching, but we see ourselves as a Football League side. Maybe we shouldn't, with the crowds that we attract now, and that we haven't been in the League Two for, I think, 20 years nearly now. Well, I think just over 20 years now. But our aim every season is get back to the Football League with Halifax. And obviously it's very difficult when we don't have the biggest budget in the division. We don't have the richest chairman. So what we've got to do is we've got to find these hidden gems from the lower leagues, players that have fallen out of the Football League. And I think 9 times out of 10 with those players, we are quite successful at bringing them on and making them into quality footballers. It's just keeping hold of them, which is the frustrating part. We've had Mr. Luke said Viva, Luke, and then we've had George. He's just signed Hannah as well. York for playoffs. Joe said Norwood was won promotion with Tranmere from the National League. Decent signing, to be fair. Yeah, even a Chesterfield fan can agree with me there. And then Tom's put Halifax will be down there for me. Haven't replaced some of the players they lost correctly, but that's something that everyone says every single season. So I'm going to disagree with you on that, but it's all about opinions. Definitely a Football League side, we just need to stay consistent, and obviously more fans at the share would be nice. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. Keep your comments coming in. Also, as there are quite a lot of people in the live stream at the moment, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Every season we're trying to grow this podcast. We talk everything National League, game week preview shows, interviews, vlogs, you name it, we'll produce it. And as well, leave your suggestions about things you'd like to see on the channel, and maybe even improvements to the live streams as well in the future. So yeah, smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've also got this, and it's quite an interesting one. Someone actually mentioned this when asking for suggestions. They want a topic of debate for the live chat and for me and Paul, as alongside obviously the predictions. And the main topic I thought I could think of was first manager to be sacked this season. Now, is that one that you want to come back to, Paul, or would you answer that now?
Oh, that's a
put you on the spot.
I mean, I've got my opinions. I think Mickey Morton at York is the one that's going to be under fire. Massive investment from where they were last year. New owner, likes to meddle a little bit. You know, they've got a lot to prove, and I think if he doesn't do it, then he could be on his way.
I agree with you on that on Morton as well, because obviously they've got high demands about, you know, getting into the playoffs now with the money that they've spent. There's a lot of high expectations for York, but a manager that I think, and I've said this in my predictions, it's going to go either way. I think it's going to be Winger at Solihull, because I can either see them starting horrendously and being one of those sides that everyone, you know, that are proper struggling near the bottom, or I could see them being a side that just stun everyone and actually overachieve than what we expected. But I could see him struggling. The Rochdale manager, Jim McNulty, I think every side who just comes down to the National League always struggles. And I think we often see managers change when sides have just come down. Oldham did it with Sheridan last season. Scunthorpe did it with their manager. I think Southend also did it with their manager, because they had, was it Chris Brown in charge? He was Paul Brown, I think it was, in charge. And who were the other team as well? No, it was Grimsby, they didn't. But a lot of sides who come down often sack the managers after 10 or so games. And I can see that happening with Rochdale as well. Let us know your thoughts then in the live chat before we get on to the predictions. Also, what I was going to mention is Alan Harris, who's a York City supporter, is winning a predictions competition. You've probably seen on Twitter. He's been promoting it on there. There's a link in the description for you to get involved. Basically, you can predict one of the 5 leagues. I think it's £3 a go and then £5 for the National League one. I think first prize is a Samsung TV worth over £800. And obviously it's not about that, but also they're raising money for charity as well. For I think it's the Brain Tumour Research Charity. You know, it's a brilliant cause. So please, if anyone's up for that, please get behind it. There's a link just below there and also in the description and also in the live chat as well, I believe. So, yeah, if you are a fan of giving predictions, then that's something that I would suggest doing. So let's see what people have been saying then. We've had Mr. Lucas said Michael Morton, pressure on him. Didn't York owner last about 3 months at Yeovil? That's for another time. And then we've had agree with you. The pressure on York is big. I think it will be White at Southend. You mean White at Dorking? But I doubt that, Tom, to be honest. And Oldham fans put David Unsworth, and it's still split between the fan base. Unsworth out. I'm going to disagree with you on that one. But we've also had, can see it being Russell Penn. That's the Kidderminster manager, isn't it? I can see Kidderminster struggling, but he got them out of this division. Paul, how long do you think you stay with a manager that got you out of this division?
Oh, blimey. Well, Maidstone did it too long and got relegated, didn't they, last year? It's a tough one to call because you look at managers last year were some, was Mark Molesey sacked at Aldershot a bit too early considering the budget and the players that he had to bring in? Possibly they survived and they weren't looking like that when he was in charge yet. Halifax, bringing their new manager in, Altrincham going full-time, they stuck with their managers. Paul Cook was stuck with at Chesterfield. They could have easily bombed him out January, but he actually improved the side and nearly got promoted. So, listen, it's a really difficult one, and we will always have different opinions, won't we, as fans, as to how long a manager should stay in charge. But I think there's got to be some credit in the bank for the likes of Russell Penn, who have got their clubs where they have in the National League after a period of not being in it. So I think, considering they haven't spent a massive amount of money, I can't see him being the one that's under the pressure the most.
John's mentioned that he can't access the link. If anyone can't access the link, put it in the comment section below. Can't access link, and I'll give you my social media is just coming across there. Drop me a message on any social media, and then I'll try sort it out with you on there if anyone can't access that link. But yeah, Russell Penn, and obviously about that and keeping with the manager who's got you promoted. They've earned that respect to get him into this division. But we saw York City were quite ruthless with John Askey last season. And we've seen in the past they've been quite ruthless with the managers. But you don't want to go the other way with Maidstone, where you leave it too long and then it's too late. And this is where you've got to get that balance right for next season. And I don't really want to talk about Russell Penn being sacked when he's just gotten promoted. It's very early to call. But I think it is about getting that balance right, depending on how Kidderminster start. Give him time. Give him probably 10 games, probably even longer, I'd say 15, 20 games. Get to the halfway point of the season. See where Kidderminster's at and assess there. And that's when you consider making changes. A Dagenham fan, John, who's come in, said, we look good in pre-season, may surprise a few teams. On the other side, Paul, we've both put them like lower mid-table, haven't we? No, I have. I think you've put them 12th, did you? And I think I've put them...
Yeah, I can't remember the top of my head.
16th. And now it's like Gateshead, it's so hard to call because since we've done those predictions, they've brought in a new load of players from the Football League. So it's very hard to call with Dagenham. Would you, with the signings that they've made recently, would you be tempted to put them higher, or are you sticking with that 12th place?
No, it's a season of transition for them, isn't it? First season under Strevens with the pre-season. They cleared the decks back in the last year into this pre-season. Yes, admittedly, he's gone out eventually and signed some lads that look like they're going to be capable of doing it in the National League. But I still think it's too early to call to say that they're going to be up and around the playoffs. Not to say they won't be, but I think it's going to be tough. It's that season of bedding in and transition for them.
The problem is, like we said this in our predictions, we said that what the problem is sides who did very well last season and maybe overachieved and were in and around the playoffs. There's only one side that significantly got weaker, in my opinion, and that's obviously Southend, which I think everyone agrees with. Apart from that, your Bromleys, your Workings, your Barnets, all these sides, you know that they're going to be in and around that top 10. And have Dagenham done enough to be better than that side last season? And you've got to remember that these sides aren't the same sides of last season. They've actually just strengthened from last season. They haven't lost a load of players. They've just added to the squad that they already had from last season. And like you mentioned, I think it is a season of transitioning for Dagenham under the new manager. And then maybe the following season, that's when you push on and try get back into those playoffs again, where I know that's somewhere that Dagenham feel that they should be. Maybe we'll be wrong, but that's our opinions at the moment. We've had just a rumour, if it's just going to come through, just a rumour. I'm hearing Joe Nuttall to Oldham. Joe Nuttall to Oldham, what do you think of this? What I'm hearing? Joe Nuttall, he's already at Oldham. So I'm not... Oh, Joe Nuttall to Dorking, he meant. That'd be a very strange but astute signing for Dorking. That'd be a bit random, wouldn't it? If he went to join Mark White, that'd be so random, I would say, if he went there. What's your thoughts?
Listen, nothing's off limit with Mark White, is it? They've just this summer proposed that share scheme, or is it, part ownership for the fans to generate a bit of income. They've gone full time or part of the this hybrid system. So who's to suggest that they don't go in for someone like Joe Nuttall? I mean, if Joe Nuttall is on Oldham's books and they've got 6 strikers, they're not all going to play. And these lads want to play football, whether it be at Dorking, Oldham, Wealdstone, Halifax. And ultimately, they want to play games, right? So if Mark White can give him a decent proposition and, he's able to relocate down south, then why not?
Yeah, it just don't feel like Dorking. But to be honest, although I've interviewed him twice before with Mark White, I don't actually know how much money he's prepared to spend on Dorking, because he's the sort of manager, in my opinion, an owner, is he'll have a squad that he believes in, and then if it's not going his way, then I think he'd believe in those players still, but I think he'd have the capabilities to bring in someone like Joe Nuttall from Oldham. But it would be, I think, quite random, I would say, for him to just move all the way down south to Dorking as well, because I would have thought that there'd be maybe even higher. Not saying that Dorking, but I just think there's obviously sides of I think have got more to offer than what Dorking have in the National League. And I know you can look back at this story, but I even look at sides down south. You've got Dagenham down there. You've got Eastleigh down there. I know Eastleigh have got Quigley and also Paul McCallum up top. But you'd like to think all these southern sides, who I think have got not more ambitions, but are expected to be in the playoffs, would have more to offer to Joe Nuttall than what Dorking would. And I can't see none of them sides not taking him. So it'd just be a bit random for me, to be honest. Could be the Oldham manager. I can see why. I don't think when everyone's saying he's out now, I just think that's a bit unfair on him, because the season hasn't even kicked off. He actually did very well in the second half of last season for Oldham. So I do disagree with Oldham fans who are wanting him out at the moment. But I can see if it's not going their way with the amount of money Oldham have spent, I do think it's not going to take long before they're looking at other managers who they can bring in. George, who is another York fan. I believe we had 2 Georges in who are both York City fans tonight. People need to educate themselves about York's situation. Ugler put his hand up and admitted he did things wrong at Yeovil. Time will tell, but Ugler got 100% faith in Morton, and the fan base is happy. Interesting. I know York fans are proper behind him, aren't they, at the moment? And I've even seen some Yeovil fans that have got behind and were saying that he saved the club. I know you know more and you have your strong opinions about him, but from what you've seen, would you say that everything we've seen so far, it seems all positive, I think, from York? There's nothing that feels negative. The only thing that I've seen that's negative is actually the Yeovil chairman threatening Ugler, getting into a bit of a spat between themselves. And that's something we could come on to later. But what's your thoughts on that statement there that George has just put out as a York?
Listen, they're closer to it than us. I watched closely what he did at Yeovil at a time when Yeovil were pretty desperate anyway, and I think were probably doomed. I just don't think he helped very much. I don't think the way that he conducted himself on social media, the way he was picking players up that the manager didn't want, and that was all out in press conferences. He probably didn't get on with the manager at Yeovil. So, it's one of those things. Listen, I reserved judgment. At first, I thought this could go horribly wrong with York. Yeah, and then the first few players that he dragged in weren't convinced they were National League quality. Was he going to have this scattergun approach of just trying to drag players in and pay them money and get them to York? Admittedly, he's got two great centre halves there. He's got a very good goalkeeper. He's built a great spine, hasn't he? And if he does what he says he'll do, and he'll let Mickey Morton get on with it, and there's no pressure on him, and he won't get involved in potentially picking the team and meddling and being in the change room and everything else that he was at Yeovil, then York are onto a really good thing. And you know, is his mother a calming influence? I have no idea. She wasn't involved at Yeovil. But he certainly conducted himself in a different manner with York, and to that I give him credit. Yeah, aside from that spat with Martin Hellier, but listen, you know, let them get on with it. It's ridiculous, you know, they get involved in that. But for the sake of York City and their fan base, and they're a bit disenfranchised with the last owner, and you know, it wasn't really going for them, was it? So, yeah, fair play. Good luck to Matt Ugler. Good luck to York. We have them Saturday, first game of the season, so not an easy one for us. They're bringing about 800 down to West London, so they clearly are keen. And I think they're fairly positive about what's going to happen this season.
Yeah, this is what I find interesting about Ugler and that Healer spat. And I don't want to talk about it too much, but with Ugler, there aren't many chairmen in this division who are on Twitter and are proper active on Twitter, and the way that they're announcing tweets, they're public about it and about everything they're doing. They respond to people. I'm actually behind that. I think there should be more of that within reason. But there's a point where you feel like, from a professional point of view, when does it become unprofessional from what you're doing on Twitter? And, you know, I don't want to say that it was wrong for him to promote that Healer situation, because I know people have got behind it. And from the messages that I saw, it looked disgusting from the Yeovil owner, that was. But it also looked pretty pathetic from both sides. I'm going to be honest on that. I don't want to talk about it too much, but what I will say is, you know, you're both on Twitter. You're both I prefer Ugly to the Yeovil owner, by the way, but you're both on Twitter all the time, actively commenting. Was there any need to, you know, get into these spats when Yeovil aren't even in York's division? They're not even rivals to York anymore. They're in the league below. I don't understand it, to be honest. So we'll move on from that then anyway. But we've got a Wrexham fan that has joined the stream. Greetings. Welcome from Wrexham. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to getting back to the football. Of course, you've got MK at the Casraz, I believe, on Saturday. So that should be a big game for you. We'll get through these now and get through the predictions. Let's see what people have been saying. Anyone get on the board with Dorking Rise Up campaign? Seeds doesn't allow USA participants at the moment, but sounds interesting. Here we go. Any possibility that Oldham pip Chesterfield for the title? I think with that signing now, I think they're closer than what they were. And then we've also had Keza, who's an Oldham fan. I told you the Oldham fans would turn up late, and they certainly have done. But welcome to the stream, Keza. Good to see you back in the stream. Personally, I feel York could win the league within 2-3 seasons if they keep the investment at this level. If they don't get promoted by then, I don't think they're going to get promoted this season. When people put them in the top 3, I think that's a little bit too ambitious still with that squad compared to some of the other sides. And then we've had the amount of Georges in York are probably the same amount as Smiths in the UK. And then a laughing emoji there. So, yeah, let's get into the predictions then. Now, this is what I thought. Before we do this, people can actually... I'd like to see what people suggest. But I think come the end of the season, Paul, there should be a forfeit for whoever loses the predictions. This was my idea, and it's up to you. Whoever loses... You'd have to wear a Barnet shirt for when we do like an end of season review, if we end up doing one. But if I lose, I'd have to wear a Rochdale shirt.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
We'll give that a go then. So we'll shake on that virtually then, and we'll do that at the end of the season to whoever loses the predictions. And then we'll just read this out and then we'll get on with it. I think York will do well the Tadcaster manager compared Morton's tactics to Bielsa, which is quite a statement. Yeah, Bielsa was very good at Leeds, I will admit that. But let's get into the predictions then without any further ado. I think that's the right one. I always get this wrong. Oh, just me now on the screen. That'll probably do, to be honest. Right, unless it's that one. Yeah, we'll have that one. Right, let's get on with it then. So, obviously, the table, York are top, which is weird. I think they should be 24th. But this is the table at the moment on alphabetical reasons. We'll get into the rounds then by round. Let's have a look at games. So we start with Aldershot versus Oxford then. What was your prediction then?
I went with Aldershot 1, Oxford City 1.
I agree with you on that one. Aldershot 1, Oxford City 1. I agree with you on that one. Why have you gone for a 1-1 draw between the two clubs?
Well, as we both know, we've predicted them to finish lowly in the table. I think it's never a good time to play a newly promoted side at the beginning of the season because they've got a full complement of players. Any squad has, obviously, but Aldershot, I think, aren't going to be the strongest. I know one of the fans there said that they might surprise a few. So I don't know too much about their squads really in terms of their capabilities at this level at this time. So I've just gone with that low scoring draw.
I think Oxford have recently promoted, and although I think we've both predicted, I think we both predicted them to finish bottom in the National League this season, and I'm sticking with that. But what I can see happening with Oxford is them actually starting well and shocking a few teams because they are this surprise team and with a lot of unknown quality as well in that side, quantity in that side, players that we know nothing too much about. Neither will other teams as well. They don't really know these players who've come from the lower leagues. They'll offer something different to this division, but let's get 10 games in. I think that's when they start to get found out. The quality between them and other sides in this division really does show. That's how I think it's going to plan out this season for Oxford. But they've recently been promoted. They've got a massive amount of momentum because it's the first time in the National League as well. We can't forget against an Aldershot side, and I think their fans, the fan base is torn between optimistic and being quite negative on the season, and I can see why the players that they've lost. But what we've got to also remember from Aldershot side of things is they've brought in a lot of players, and it's going to take them time to bed in as well into this division and play as a team well. And I agree with that as well. But I think a low-scoring 1-1 draw between the two sides is fair for me. So we'll agree on that one. So we move on to, where do you want to go next then, Paul?
Let's just go down the table, Luke, as they come.
Right, we'll go to Altrincham then. Altrincham versus Dagenham then. What's your thoughts on this game?
Altrincham 2, Dagenham 0. Now, purely because what we've talked about Dagenham recently, not a few moments ago, rather, a state of flux, a change of manager partly through the season. It's his first pre-season, whereas we know what to expect from Aldershot, and if anything, we expect more. And I think they're going to be stronger. Their signings have been absolute quality. I predict them to be very high up in the league, and I think starting at home is always good for any team. And I think they're just going to be too strong for the Daggers on the day.
Let us know your predictions as well in the live chat. I'm going to agree with you on that. Altrincham, I've got them quite high up this season. I think they're going to do well. I've got them, I think, 11th. I think I predicted Altrincham to finish this season. And I think against a Dagenham side, another side, Dagenham lost a lot of players and a lot of new players coming into the side. It's going to take them time to bed in as well with Altrincham. But with Altrincham being the home side, I'm sure there'll be a big big support behind them for the opening game. I really like Altrincham as a side with the players that they've brought, and I think they're going to be a good footballing side. And I think Dagenham will try to do that too. But I think at the moment with the recruitment that Altrincham have made, the players that they've kept from last season, I think Altrincham are going to win. So I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Altrincham win. Next game, and we'll go to Barnet versus Hartlepool then. What's your thoughts on this game?
I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think both teams are going to be strong contenders in the playoffs. I've got Barnet, I think third or fourth? And, they've improved massively last year, probably the most improved side, as I've said previously, in the National League. Hartlepool, although coming down from the EFL, weren't here too long ago. They respect the league, and I think they've got that firepower. Josh Umro, our ex-Stones man, who's done well up there since he's gone. I can see them scoring goals, and I can see Barnet scoring goals. My worry for Barnet, as I said when we did the prediction shows, they've just lost John Dreyer, who's their assistant manager and very much the defensive mastermind in that management team. I would suggest we'll see how they adapt without him, but Barnet 2, Hartlepool 2. I think it should be a good game, actually.
I think that'll be a draw as well. I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Hartlepool this season are going to be a side that are going to be very, very difficult to beat. I think they're going to be a side that there'll be a lot of draws with them with that side. They're a big physical side. I think especially they're going to be good defensively. And I think in the air from set pieces, that's where they can, score a lot of goals with Diasarue, Umwa up top. Those two up top, you've got two giants up top there that are going to be very, very hard to mark. I'm still struggling to see how both of them fit into the team because they are very, very like-for-like players. But I'm going to go for a draw. Barnet being at home, Hartlepool coming away. I'm sure Hartlepool will take a good following because they are quite well supported away from home. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw there between the two sides. Of course, like I mentioned with Barnet, I think put them in 10th place this season. Hartlepool just to finish just inside the playoffs. But these games are very, very hard to call. But I think this one will be a draw. Moving on then to Chesterfield versus Dorking. What's your take on this one?
Chesterfield 3, Dorking 1. I don't think it could. It's not. If you look at that and Oldham, who we believe are going to be the top two and probably going to tough it out for the promotion play, they've both got very, very likeable sort of opening fixtures. And Chesterfield being at home against Dorking, one of the minnows of the league, did brilliantly last year to stay in it. I just think Chesterfield are going to be too strong for the reasons we've discussed. Paul Cook's kept the nucleus of the squad and he's just improved on it. And bringing the likes of Will Grigg in is incredible at this level. He's got something to prove. Maybe he hasn't scored too many last few seasons, but Chesterfield at home against the Dorking side, who Mark White has stated that he's got pre-season wrong a little bit in terms of their changing to that more full-time model, playing and training. Has he done too much? Chesterfield are going to be too strong for Dorking on the day, but I can see Dorking scoring a goal because that's just how Mark White likes to play, So I think they will score, but Chesterfield will win 3-1.
I've gone for Chesterfield 5, Dorking 1. I agree with your point on Dorking scoring a goal because they're that sort of side. They'll go 5-0 down, but they're quite stubborn in the way that they play. They're never this side that sit back and try, if they know that they're going to lose, if they go 2-3-0 down against Chesterfield, they're not the sort of side that go, we don't want to embarrass ourselves here. They're the sort of side that goes, right, we're fighting until that final whistle to try and get back into this game. And knowing Mark White, they could be 5-0 down at half-time and they'd still believe that he could pull it back to 5-all. That's the sort of manager that he is, and I respect him for that. But going to Chesterfield, it's a very tough place to go. We've mentioned the reasons why Chesterfield are going to be strong this season. Going forward, I think they're going to be a cut above from what they were last season. And if Dorking are stubborn and play this way where they're just going to go out to, sort of outclass Chesterfield in a certain way, they're not going to be a side that go to the technique and think, we're going to sit back here and try catch them on the break. They're going to try outplay Chesterfield. And to be honest, I think at some point, that's not going to work. It's not going to work against, the Chesterfields of this world. And if you concede very early, it could go horribly wrong. And with the likes of Grigg, Colclough, Mandeville, up top, Dobra as well, yeah. The likes of those players, they're going to tear that Dorking defence apart if they leave themselves very open, which I will, which I think they will. And obviously last season, Dorking were very poor defensively. And yes, they've got Tony Craig on a permanent now, who was probably an improvement on their defence towards the end of last season. I can just still see Chesterfield absolutely battering Dorking at home, to be honest, with the players that they've got up top and that crowd behind them. But yeah, a bit of a battering there for Dorking, but I can just see that happening the way that they play, going to somewhere like the Technique. I just can't see it ending well for them. Next one then, it's Halifax versus Bromley. I think we'll both agree on this. It'll be a low-scoring game. It always is between your Halifaxes and your Bromleys. And what's your take on this one?
I've gone for 1-1, and I think for your sake, Luke, as a Halifax team, and as for the sake of us doing the predictions, I'm quite glad this is going out on the first week. It's not the most exciting game in the world, is it?
Mm-hmm. No, it certainly isn't. It's not one that, for those international fans that just love the National League, it's not one that you think, yeah, I'm going to tune into that one.
Not at all. Listen, Boreham Wood are Boreham Wood. They play a certain way. Bromley are Bromley. They play a certain way. We've discussed this many a time. Andy Woodman just relies on youth, gives youth a chance, but yeah, they're a very pragmatic side, and they have lost a few, and I don't think they're going to probably show up as well as they did last year. And obviously, Halifax have lost a few. I think you'd probably agree, Luke. You're not really sure where they're at the moment. Hopefully, they're going to improve on last year rather. So yeah, it's just going to be one of those games. 1-1. Listen, it may prove us wrong. You'll come back next week saying it was an absolute blinder, but I personally can't see it.
Well, I've gone for a 1-0 Halifax win against Bromley, and yes, that's going to be a bit biased, but we know every season, even last season, Halifax, when they get their act together, they're a good side at home. They're very hard to beat at home. The problem's always been with us is we're never good enough away from home, and it's a long way for Bromley to come. But when I assess both sides, Bromley, they've lost one or two quality players from that starting 11 that they were going to play last season. They're basically the same team what they were last season, apart from they've lost Omar Sawamya and replaced him with Kapekawa, who's a bit of a like-for-like defender. In my opinion, not good enough yet, but maybe. Harry Forster's left the club, they've replaced him. And they just feel like Bromley are going to be that side. They're not going to be better. They're not a better side than last season on paper. And what I'm going to say, if anything, they could be a weaker side than last season. Halifax, towards the end of last season, actually drew to Bromley at home and probably should have won that game. But with Halifax, the difference between Halifax and Bromley is, yes, we've lost 4 or 5 good players that probably would have started on Saturday, but we've replaced them with players that we know nothing about. And that's something that could either work in our favour or go against us. We can't tell if Halifax, this game, they could be amazing. They could be these players could be quality that start and could be a cut above from last season. We could be saying, yeah, we're a better side than last season. Or we could say we're in trouble. We could be in a relegation scrap after the end of this game. We don't really know where to put Halifax at the moment, the players that we've brought in. Bromley, the players that they've brought in, they're basically just going to fit into Andy Woodsman's system and just hope that they're going to, keep that squad together, which was quite successful last season. In my opinion, I've got to be optimistic with the new players that we've brought in. They looked good on trial, the players that have come in from on trial. And I just think it'll be a low-scoring game. I've mentioned that I think we're going to struggle on the forward side of things this season. And Bromley are obviously good defensively. But I think we're good defensively as well for the players that we've brought in. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Halifax win on that game. Gateshead versus Boreham Wood then. What's your thoughts on this?
A real clash of styles, isn't it? Gateshead like to play, as I say, through the thirds, play on the ground. Boreham Wood, I think, are a little bit more direct. Got wingers. They try and play wide, get the ball in the box. Do not let any goals in, do they, Boreham Wood? They're very, very hard to get to break down. A long way to go for the Wood first game of the season. They're probably going to be happy with that and not going up on a cold Tuesday night or in the depths of the winter up there. So I've gone with a 1-1 draw. Again, not really too sure how Gateshead are going to pan out this season. They really finished well at the back end of last year, didn't they? So after an indifferent start, whereas Boreham Wood are very consistent throughout every season they seem to play in the National League. Yeah,
well, I've actually gone different. I've gone for a 2-0 Gateshead win now when I've been thinking about it. And like I've mentioned, I like that Chadwick and Dinang up top. That is deadly if it comes off this season. Chadwick can produce a lot of goals, I know, from when he was at Halifax. And Dinanga proved in that second half of the season at Gateshead that he can score a lot of goals too. And it just feels like a proper strong side for Gateshead this season. And I do feel like I've put them a bit lower than what I expected. Of course, Boreham Wood, I've actually put them quite high up this season in my predictions. I believe I put them 4th. But it's the first game of the season. There's a few new players that are coming into the side. It's a long way to go for Boreham Wood. And I think if Gateshead score that first goal, I would expect Gateshead to go on to win the game. So I've gone for a 2-0 Gateshead win. We'll quickly read the live chat before we proceed any further. Kez has come in. That's what I was trying to suggest, Joe. We haven't played a consistent formation in pre-season, and he hasn't played a consistent team. As long as it ain't Fond up and Nuttall up top, it should be all right. Harry, who is a Coventry City fan here, but reckon Rochdale back-to-back relegations, calling for it now. So you're expecting them to do a Scunthorpe? I'm not too sure about that. I think they've got enough to be okay this season from relegation. Keza, what's your honest opinions for yourself? This will be interesting to see what he says. Anything but promotion is a failure, to be honest, Callum. If we end up staying down, no way we don't go up the season after. What's your thoughts on that statement?
Listen, yeah, is it possible that last year Oldham chose a year to consolidate, knowing that they probably wouldn't compete with the big two, County and Wrexham? Chesterfield similar? Have they sort of kept their powder dry and gone all out this summer to try and get promoted? Listen, Kez is an Oldham fan, and he sees that as if he can see the optimism in the team. He can see the quality they're signing, the size of the club. Yeah. If they don't go up this year, they're going to be the big boys next year. And I think, they're going to be the ones that are going to be sort of try to be caught. It's going to be a real difficult one, Chesterfield, Oldham. I know we've gone with Chesterfield, the both of us at the top, but Oldham could quite easily be up there and get promoted either second or as champions. It could be another one of those, not quite in the blockbuster sense with Wrexham and Notts County, but yeah. Chesterfield, Oldham could be a real good title race.
Yeah, it certainly could. I know last season, the problem with Chesterfield was throughout the season, they didn't have a prolific goal scorer. And after 10 games, that's when Wrexham and Notts County, the breaks came off for them. And that's when they started to really kick on and show what they were about, because they had Mullin, because they had Langstaff, and they could offer goals from other positions as well as two of the best strikers we've ever seen at non-league level. This season for Chesterfield, I think, what my initial thoughts was last season, they were the third best side in the division, probably best of the rest, I would put it at. And they've added to it with bringing in Will Grigg. And I think that'll be a big statement, is how's Will Grigg going to do this season? If Will Grigg doesn't score many, I'd still expect Chesterfield to be title contenders. But I think Norwood, in my opinion, there's more chance of him being prolific than there is Will Grigg, because Will Grigg hasn't scored over he hasn't got into double digits over the past 4 seasons. Norwood has, and he's a good striker. Even last season, he played in the League One playoff final, I believe, and that's the difference. It's going to be interesting. I think that's what's going to call this title now, is who's going to be the better striker out of Norwood and Grigg this season, because I think now adding that, Oldham are closer to Chesterfield than what they were when we initially did our predictions. We had them second before they had that, but I think Norwood guarantees goals, where Nuttall, Reid, Fondop, I'd never think that they're going to be top goal scorer candidates, where Norwood I really do feel he could be next season. Paul's put, dark horse of the league will be there this season. Are you pleased to see us? Paul, let us know who you do support, because I'm not sure on that. I'm guessing you're putting yourselves to be dark horse. Up the Brom, he's a Bromley fan. We'll be meeting up on Saturday, won't we, Zach, in Halifax? So it'll be good to see you then. And then we've got our game against Bournemouth is going to be a great game, I reckon. Both sides love to play great football, and two of the best young managers in the league. I reckon we can do it 2-1 to us. Boring Wood 1-1, and then to be fair, I get Gateshead to finish 5th. They'll be the dark horse, I feel. Gateshead 2-0, and then Oldham are mixed bag, good team with an unproven manager. Southend United as the dark horse. We'll be coming on to them very shortly. And that's probably one of the most awkward predictions to do against Oldham, because you can see it going both. I don't know what your take is on this. Do you want to just jump to that one and then we'll come back just as one of the topic of him? What I can see with this is it'll go both ways. I know we've spoke to Chris, haven't we, on our mini group chat, and he's been saying that it's going to take a few games for Southend to get back to fully fitness, and it's not going to be a pleasant time for them for the first couple of games. But then I look at the other way, is Oldham come down there and they're the strong favourites by a country mile. It'd be a bit of a fairy tale if Southend United stayed up this season. And you know that the players, although they're not getting paid, they're going to put over 100% into this game, 110% into this game, Southend United. What's your take on this, not just your prediction, but like this game as a whole?
I can't see anything other than an Oldham win, purely on the basis of what we know and what we spoke about with Chris. And Southend might have 15 players. You know, they can just about fulfil a team and a bench. They're not. Their pre-season's been interrupted. They haven't played as many games as they want. I can't see. I mean, Oldham have got as many strikers. Got as a third of Southend's squad, you know, and this is what they're up against. So I've gone with Oldham to win 3-0. I just think they're just going to be way too powerful. They're going to be buzzing for it. Everyone thinks, or in the Oldham ranks, that they're going to want to get promoted. They're going to get promoted. They should get promoted. I think Southend, most of those fans will just want to make sure that they've got a team at the end of the season to support, and it's going to be a rough ride for them. And I think it starts Saturday.
I went for a 2-0 Oldham win. I'm still backing them. And like you've mentioned, getting back to full fitness, Chris wasn't very positive, was he? That's Chris Phillips. For the first couple of games, he's been saying that they're going to struggle. And I understand why. And obviously, he knows a lot more than us. And they're playing, if it does work out our predictions, they're playing the second best side in the division, maybe the best side in the division for all we know. So, yeah, it's very, very hard to really give predictions on them, game week predictions at the moment. But I'm going to back Oldham with a 2-0 win. I think they've got too much for Southend, even if Southend, you know, were under normal circumstances, you'd still expect Oldham to win. Ethan said, what do you think about Hartlepool and Barnet? Missed the first bit of the live. What I would suggest is you either watch the rest of this podcast, and then once we've finished, just zoom back to the Hartlepool versus Barnet game. It was one of the earlier games that we did predict. So either rewind now or watch the rest of the podcast and then come back to it at the end. Someone said, Southend fans come back and said, all up to Dale on wages. Everyone has been paid up to date. That was. Lloyd said, no, I missed it. Yeah, you may have to rewind and do the same thing as what Ethan may have to do. And then we've had George, if Reece Gregor Cox stays fit, he should be in the top 4 or 5 of scorers. That's a working fan there about Gregor Cox next season. We'll get back to the games then. Let's try and get through these then. I think we are actually at Woking versus Kidderminster. Yeah. Kidderminster, we both predicted to go down. Woking, I predicted to finish 3rd, and you predicted to finish them 8th. This is why it's very hard to call, because you feel like with the first game, Kidderminster have got momentum to get something out of this game. With them getting back to the National League, you know that Agborough is going to be packed, I would suspect, them being promoted back into this division. A good atmosphere there. I've backed Woking though still. I think they'll have too much for them. I think I went for a 1-0 Woking win. What's your prediction?
I went 2-0 for Woking. I think you're right, Luke. You know, the momentum will be there for Kiddie at home. First National League game in a number of years. Woking are a strong. Listen, I put Woking 8th, I think it was, but I could have easily put them 6th or 5th. You know, there's an argument to that little cluster in and around sort of the playoffs. Any team could be any position. We'll see how it pans out over the next sort of 10, 11 games in the first instance. But yeah, listen, I don't think Kiddie are going to have enough. Woking are very, very strong National League side. They're very pragmatic. They're efficient. They've made some incredible signs. I think their manager is very, very good. You know, highly rated. You know, my only grievance with Woking is that they signed Charlie Wakefield and Denon Lewis, who I think are two of the worst wingers I think I've ever seen in the National League in the last 5 years. But apart from that, I think they're Matty Robinson in midfield. Love Matty Robinson. I think he's an incredible footballer. I'd love to have seen him in Stone's colours, to be honest. But listen, I think they're going to be too strong for Kiddie. They'll get, if they get the first goal, which I think they will, because they're going to win 2-0. Kiddie aren't going to sort of get back from that.
No, well, the problem that I've mentioned with Kidderminster that I think is going to be this season is goals. I just can't see Kidderminster scoring many goals with that forward line. Woking, on the other hand, Reece Brown, Gregor Cox going forward. So many good attackers for Woking this season. Like you mentioned, they've got Robinson in the midfield as well. The lad that they got from Wealdstone at the back, they're just a very, very good side going forward and defensively. Padraig Hammond as well up top for them. The names are all just coming into the back of my head now for Woking. But no, as I've stated, there's too much for Woking going forward, and I think they'll comfortably beat Kidderminster if they get an early goal. Lloyd said he's the Maidstone fan. Anyone? He was literally. I don't know if he's still here, but he tuned in earlier. And then we had if we Gregor Cox. Oh yeah, we've read that out, I believe. And then any more? We had. You can tell Manager isn't very good on the National League. I believe is that the Coventry fan who was here just a short while ago. No, I've seen other people predict him quite low down, to be fair. He is still here. My top 5 for the top goal scorers in numbers are Grigg, Norwood, Kabamba, Effingham, Cheek. Grigg to get 34 goals at 31 years of age. That's what I'm unsure about. Is he going to be prolific this season for Chesterfield? When I think about it now, I'm not the most confident about that. What's your thoughts? Do you think? Are you still expecting him to tear this division apart?
Listen, there's a reason the teams and the players are playing at National League level. There's a reason why Will Grigg's been playing higher, but he hasn't proven himself at that higher level over the last few years, has he, Luke? As you say, it hasn't hit double figures for a good few years. So listen, he's been in and around different teams. He's moved every year. Is this a move that is good for him? Is it his level? There's a load of unanswered questions. I think 34 is probably quite a strong number, but
yeah,
listen, Tom, he knows his National League, so who's to say that he couldn't? But I think it might. Listen, Grigg and Norwood is running as the top 2 with Kabamba from Barnet and Effingham at Aldershot. I think Effingham 19 for Aldershot. I mean, they're going to have to give him some service to get that amount of goals. Yeah. And similar to Bromley with Cheek, has Cheek been in and around that sort of number of goals over the last few years? Who knows?
The thing with Cheek, though, is that what I think is with Bromley, they've got Adam Marriott as well. There's a point where you share those goals, don't you?
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah. Grigg will play consistently, I think, with Chesterfield as long as he's fit and he doesn't lose form. Norwood the same. They brought him in last knock-ins to come and play off from Barnsley. He's not coming from anywhere too shabby. So listen, they're going to be in the reckoning. Whether they get that many goals is tough to see. But I know you're sort of not as convinced on Grigg. I'm gonna reserve judgment. Let's give him 4 or 5 games and see where he's at after that.
Yeah, well, I think if he scores on the opening day, then I may change my opinion. But what I will say is, when Mullin was in this division, he was in his mid-20s, and the previous season, he was prolific in the league above. Obviously, Langstaff was prolific in the league below. Will Grigg hasn't been prolific for the 4 seasons, and I just think there's like you mentioned, there's a reason he's playing in the National League, and it's because he hadn't scored. There must have been League 2 side. Well, there clearly wasn't any League 2 sides that have more money than Chesterfield that thought, yeah, I want him. Bradford City, a side like that never came in. There wasn't a Stockport, a Leyton Orient that have come in the summer. And there's a reason for that, is that he's dropped into non-league. And I think it is one of those that's going to go either way for Chesterfield this season, but I'm just not too confident with his age, and he hasn't been prolific for a number of seasons now. And yes, he'll have all the service in the world, more than any other striker can be in that Chesterfield side with the players around him, but I'm just I just prefer that Norwood deal to the Will Grigg one, to be honest. I just don't think he's as good as Andrew Dallas either. Let's have a look then and see who else is joining us tonight. There's a few were a bit late to the party. We've got Mickey, who is a Gateshead fan. Hooray, the lads. Good evening. Hope you both well, gents. Have I missed the Heed score prediction? Unfortunately, Mickey, you have. So you'll either have to watch the rest of this podcast and come back to it at the end. You know the time. Should be here at 7 p.m. And then we've had York City Strike. People, Akanayeme will shock a few. I can see him scoring 20 plus if he scores early. This is what, but this goes back to my point. Was it the predictions we were talking about this? And it was, you were playing in the Scottish Championship. How do you compare that to the National League? And the way that I see it, and I'm not an expert in Scottish football, to be honest. I'm English, so I don't watch that. But the second division, I see it as you've got a few big clubs that could probably play in League 2, League 1, maybe your Dundees, and the rest are like National League North and South standard. So it's very hard to tell how he's going to do this season. For me, I don't even know, to be honest. I just think it's very hard to call, but that's going to be what's going to make or break York this season. Is he going to be prolific? Because there's no one else going forward that could get into double digits, where Chesterfield, there is with Dobro, Coldclough, Mandeville. They all have the capabilities to get into double digits if Will Grigg isn't prolific. York City, I can't see anyone else going forward being able to be prolific for them if he doesn't turn up this season. What's your take on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you talk about the levels, Wealdstone a couple of years ago had a lad on loan from Fulham called Connor McAvoy. Connor came to watch Wealdstone last season at the back end, and he'd been playing in the Scottish Championship before he got injured. And I happened to ask him that question. He said the top teams could probably play in the Championship, League One. He said the rest are National League teams, if not lower. So I think you're not too far off, Luke, in terms of the standards. He's going to be an unknown quantity, isn't he? I think York as a whole are going to be an unknown quantity until we sort of see them settled on what team Mickey Morton chooses. They're going to be very hard to beat because of those two defenders and the goalkeeper they've signed. I think you're right. The acid test for York is what they can do going forward. Let's see how they're going to get the service to him. If he's going to shock a few, he's going to have to get that good service. So, honestly, they're a really difficult one to predict, York, and I know I've spoken about them at length for different things, but they're very easily he could get 20 goals and they could be in the playoffs without a shadow of doubt. The same token, they could be really struggling at the bottom, change their manager, influx of players, whatever. But we'll see how it goes. But as long as he gets the service, he may well do all right.
Just as there's quite a lot of people in, I think there's 55 people in at the moment, which is great for the opening game week. Hopefully we can just keep building on that. Please remember to like and subscribe. Sorry for the plug halfway through the live stream. I do apologise for that, but it does have to be done at certain times when you see the attendance is quite high, which I'm very thankful for. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in at the moment. We'll come back to what people have been saying. I believe my friend from Woking is here, Ali. Evening up the Woking. Welcome, Ali, to the stream. You're another one. We've just been talking about Woking. And then we've got George, who said, don't even know what that is, to be honest. And then we've got unproven yet this level, but if he gets going early, I can hear me shout for top goal scorer at York. Right, we better get on with these predictions, to be honest, because we're over an hour now. Maidenhead versus Fylde, then. I went for 2-0. What was your prediction?
1-0 Maidenhead. I don't think they're going to be prolific in front of goal. They're going to be hard to beat. Alan Devonshire always sets his teams up not to lose. Every year we sort of find it more and more difficult not to put them in the bottom 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. He seems to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Fylde, an unknown quantity at this level. Very, very long way to come, isn't it, on a Saturday down from the northwest. So, yes, they're going to be up for it. It's their first game in the National League, but I think Maidenhead are such a stubborn side, and I think they'll just be enough for them to beat AFC Fylde.
Fylde were a good footballing side, and Maidenhead the opposite in sort of styles of play, where they're hoofball, and it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays. It's quite a hard one to predict, but with Fylde just been recently promoted, I am sticking with it, and I know I've kept this going through. It's been a bit of a pattern throughout. I think the sides that have just been promoted to the division are going to have quite positive opening game weeks, apart from Kidderminster against Woking. But Fylde, I expect them to finish high above Maidenhead come the end of the season. And yes, although we've both predicted Maidenhead to go down, well, no, I predicted Maidenhead to go down, it's still a hard place to go. But I expect Fylde with Gold, Ottomara, Horton going forward. There's got enough quality there to see off this Maidenhead side, but it's one of them where it being so early on in the season, we don't really know what to expect. It's hard to predict with a lot of these fixtures. Solihull versus Eastleigh then. We both put Solihull proper low down, and today they go and sign Richard Stayman, who was playing championship football not long ago. I remember seeing him play in front of nearly 20,000 fans at Huddersfield. Now he's playing against Eastleigh, and now it's this division all over. But Eastleigh have recruited very well. We've spoke a lot about them in detail and the players that they've brought in. I expect Eastleigh to go here and it be a smash and grab situation. I think they're going to win this game. I think I say 3-1 to Eastleigh. What's your prediction?
I've gone 2-0 to Eastleigh. Like you, Solihull, yeah, okay, Richard Stearman's got plenty of quality, Premier League through the EFL. He is of a certain age that he's going to be tested against some of these bigger teams in the National League. And I just don't think Solihull's recruitment from the director of football through the manager down into the squad has done them any favours since January last year. And I can see them getting relegated, put them in a relegation zone. And this is not an easy start to the season, is it? Having to go to an Eastleigh side that just get on with their business. Nothing much gets said about them. They haven't got a big fan base. There's not a big fanfare around them. You know, they've got a good investor in Stuart Donald back from Sunderland, and he's proven that with some of the signings. You know, they got Chris lad who used to play for Sunderland. They've just signed.
Chris Maguire.
Chris Maguire. You talk about the centre forwards. They got Paul. God, it's good.
Paul McCallum. It's all going out your head, isn't it?
Yeah, so, you know, they've got those. Quickly, you know, they've all come back decent quality footballers at National League level, and I think Eastleigh are going to shock a lot of people this season, and I can see that starting Saturday when they win at Solihull. Yeah.
Of course, we have done this one. So for those that have just joined us, I know a lot have just come in recently into the live stream. We did that earlier. We'll move on to Wealdstone versus York, your team then. And this is where it's going to be interesting to see how York perform, because I could see them having quite a slow start, York, with the amount of new players. But then I can see them as the season goes on, them becoming a proper force and finding that identity, if that is under Michael Morton or if it isn't. I think I'm backing York in this one, because I do think it's crucial that they start they get that opening game week win away at a Wealdstone side who, no disrespect to you or any other Wealdstone fans who are watching, but a side that if you're York, you're expected to win away at Wealdstone if you're wanting to get into those playoffs. I still think it's a hard place to go, and I don't think they're going to batter Wealdstone, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 York win. What's your prediction?
I've gone in 1-1. I think the advantage is Wealdstone are at home. York are a little bit, like we've discussed, York are a little bit unproven. Manager right the way through the squad, undoubted quality. You know, they're clearly buzzing for it. I think they've sold 800 tickets. You know, 800 of them are coming down to the Vale. They're going to want to have that promotion playoff charge, and it starts on Saturday. My fear for Wealdstone is goal scorers. They've got Tavon Campbell, they've just signed, who's on loan from Rochdale. He could easily be a 20-season goal striker. He's not done it yet, but he's got the ability, I believe. You know, we've got Shauna Darkwa, who was playing for Arbroath up in the Championship, was at QPR. So, you know, Corey Andrews is fitter and stronger than he has been since he's been with the Stones. So, listen, we've got three or four lads who can score goal. We're always good in defence, and we've got all four available Saturday. That might not be happening in the next few weeks or months, but we're a little bit thin around the defensive options. So we never let many goals in. We don't score many. That's why I've gone with the 1-1 draw. But I think easily any team could win it. But you know, I think it will be a draw. It'll be 1-1. I think York may go 1-0 up, and we'll peg them back.
Rochdale versus Ebbsfleet, and I think there's a reason that this has been televised. A side that's just been promoted and a side who's just been relegated for the first time in their history. I think this will be quite entertaining. Ebbsfleet, I've mentioned, I expect them to be a dark horse this season, be mid-table, banging mid-table in 12th. I could have put them higher. Purley and up top, I think it's going to be prolific. The players around them, Cisse, Edler as well, who's at Aldershot before. I like the squad. Rochdale, though, I've mentioned that I think they'll be okay. I don't think they'll have any significant fear of relegation. And I think with it being televised, two sides that are just entering the division, no, very little. I don't think either side have ever played each other in their history, to be honest. I think this will be a 2-2 draw. I can see a lot of goals. Rochdale, I think, going forward. Sinclair, Devante Rodney, a lot of goals there. Ebbsfleet, they've got the likes of Purley and going forward, who you know is going to score goals for them this season. So, yeah, I've gone for a 2-2 draw. Like I mentioned, there's a reason that it's been televised, and it's because it's got the potential to be an entertaining match. What's your thoughts on this?
I've gone Rochdale 2, Ebbsfleet United 0. Yes, Ebbsfleet have come up, Rochdale have come down, and generally those that come up are buoyant. Those that come down are in a state of disrepair. I don't think there's too much of that at Rochdale. You'll probably know more than I do, Luke. But they've seemed to keep the squad. They have bought sensibly or recruited sensibly, and I think Rochdale, they're going to have a bigger crowd behind them. You'd hope the crowd are going to go there with a bit of optimism that they're going to maybe do well in that league and get themselves back in the EFL. And Ebbsfleet, a long way to go, a little bit unproven. Quality squad. We talked that, haven't we? Through quality squad. Took the National League South by storm last year and really won it comfortably. I just think Rochdale just going to have a little bit too much experience and a little bit too much know-how at this stage as Ebbsfleet sort of learn. And we'll come out 2-0 winners.
Let's have a look at the live chat then before we bring things to a close for tonight's live stream. Let's quickly have a quick look at what everyone's saying. Let's get that back to where it was. There we go. I still haven't removed that from the screen. So let me sort this out. We've had, let me go up. I think we're there. Yeah, personally think, back to the York topic, personally think York have goals all over the team from Howe and Cordner. Yeah, Cordner was actually Aldershot's top goal scorer last season. Who can? Ollie Dyson. We've also got Jay, I can't even read that. Jay is, and lots of strong wingers. Like often repeat, can go either way. I agree with you too. Enjoy the stream. Thank you, Tom, for the kind words. And then we've had Dom Purley going to get 20 plus goals. It wouldn't surprise me. I think he's going to be a good striker for Ebbsfleet this season and may shock a few. I agree York will either be in top 7 freely or it'll be a mid-table mediocre scrap. It's about the takeover though, isn't it? And it's about the positivity around the club after some not very pleasant years at York, apart from that promotion season over the last couple of seasons. So I honestly think this, if York just start the playoffs, you can take a lot of positives from it from where you were this, last season. We've also had top lads, keep up the great content. Going to be a fun season. Thank you, Ali, for your kind words. And then we've got just a few more that are coming through. Chris, who's a Huddersfield fan, has said, I think Chesterfield will win the league. They have to be fancied after the heartbreak they went through in the playoffs. And then we've had Paul, are you okay? I think age is catching up with you. That's a bit harsh and a bit of poor humour, to be fair there, Mikey. He's older than you, Paul, just to let you know.
What have I done to deserve that?
You're very likeable on this channel, just to let you know. It's just it's these Gateshead fans who ruin it for everyone. I'm only joking. And then we've had Manikichi, top scorer. And then we've had Mancini, I think that is a prime Juan Mata. If you're thinking of prime players, you can think of better prime players than Juan Mata. And then we had Tavon Campbell, when fit, is quality. Right, I want to ask you about this, Paul, because I didn't like him at Halifax. I thought he was very lightweight, but he was a lot younger, and I didn't think he was good enough for this level. At Wealdstone, he's just signed for you now. when you've seen him at like Aldershot and Woking, and maybe even if you remember when he was at Halifax, what do you get? What do you feel about him?
Well, the benefit we have is that Stuart Maynard and Matty Saunders tend to get the best out of centre forwards. Reece Brown came in, being pushed around a little bit, didn't do too much, has gone on and proven to be decent at Woking. Josh Umrah came in, wasn't my favourite player in the world, I have to be brutally honest. Got himself 17 goals and got a move. You know, Corey Andrews certainly improved last year at the back end of last year. Not necessarily scoring goals, but we saw the better of him than maybe talk he had earlier that season. So, you know, you've got to look at Tavon Campbell and think this is a clean slate for him. He did very well for Woking. He did. He's done well in patches at Rochdale when he's fit. I think we've got a good centre forward on our hands if he plays regularly and he gets a bit of confidence in front of goal. A little bit like Depot at York. If he starts scoring early, happy days. You know, we could have a double-figure striker. Yeah. If he starts to struggle, you know, where do we go with him? Who knows? What would his confidence do? But I've got faith in the management that, you know, that we'll get the best out of these lads. Pre-season's been a little bit worrying. We haven't scored many goals. But, you know, admittedly, we're playing MK. We played MK Dons. We played Wycombe Wanderers. We played AFC Wimbledon, and they all played a very, very strong 11. You know, almost their first choice for their EFL season. So, you know, I don't read too much into that. Chances were made. We were effective a little bit up, you know, going forward. So, yeah, Tavon Campbell, it's one of those waits and sees, but I think we just got to trust Stuart Maynard and Matty Saunders and think we've done it with 2 or 3 other strikers. He'll do it with Tavon Campbell as well.
Ali's come in and he's put up the fleet. Good to see some Ebbsfleet fans have been joining us tonight. I think that's the second I've seen now. Rochdale 2, Ebbsfleet 2. So he's agreed with me on that. The Maidstone fan, polling suspended, I think. Oh, that'd be a shit. Oh, don't tell me he is. Because that might change my prediction now. Bring 0-0 draw to kick TNTs and non-league coverage off. Yeah, that won't be the best start for TNT Sports. I still don't understand why they've done that. I'm sure there'll be more reasoning behind that. Great show, up the heat. And then we've had, thank you, Luke, as well. Good luck from Wrexham to Halifax Town FC. Right, Chris, thank you for your kind words, but it's FC Halifax Town. But I get what you're saying in the play. I don't like seeing that, but in the playoffs. Thank you very much for your kind words. And yeah, good luck to Wrexham as well. You know, I know a lot of people have, you know, strong opinions about Wrexham. And I don't want to make it about you guys now, but they have strong opinions about them because of the media coverage they get. Wrexham fans can't do anything about that. It irritates me. It'll irritate Paul. It'll irritate the 40-odd people who are watching right now. But to be honest, we just have to get on with it. And it's not Wrexham fans' fault. It's just silly media just trying to jump on the bandwagon. To be honest, what's your thoughts on that? I know it's off National League now, but when you see all this coverage, I know Paul Mullins' injury got a lot of coverage, and yeah, it was a bad injury, but does it frustrate you, or are you not really asked, to be honest?
No, it doesn't frustrate me at all. Yeah, I think it was probably the best National League season that we've seen in a long time. 2 of the best strikers in Langstaff and Mullin. The best coverage that we could ever imagine for the media, be it Wrexham and Notts County led. But how many people would have watched that playoff final and thought, the playoff semi-final, that almost that decided the league game, the Wrexham County game. These games have been watched by people who would not watch National League. And I have people talk to me about National League because of Wrexham and Notts County. You probably have the same, Luke. Mm-hmm. What I would like to see in the legacy of that is that actually it continues and people will continue to watch National League and people will continue to talk about National League. And I think that the teams that are left in it, they've strengthened the league with the players they've signed, with the squads that they have. I think the viewing figures will go up probably on television, hoping there'll be more people come through the terraces because they get disenfranchised with Premier League and EFL football. I have no doubt that last season was a good fillet for National League and National League clubs, without a doubt. I enjoyed it. I don't get annoyed by the fact that it's Wrexham this and Wrexham that. You know, like the BBC followed Salford City for a number of years. Let them get on with it. You don't have to watch it, but actually it benefits us all. Everyone's talking about National League. Yeah, I just want to make sure, and us as you know, are doing things like this, that it's still promoted and people still want to follow the National League, and actually it gets stronger rather than weaker again.
Well, just on your point there, my mates when I was younger, they always used to say Halifax, are they a pub team? And they said, I don't know anyone in that league. As soon as Wrexham come along, they're all saying, oh, I've seen Wrexham documentary. Oh, I've seen Halifax. And it's all, oh, I respect this division now. And you just hope that people keep respecting it and they don't think now Wrexham and Notts are gone, oh, the league's back to being this pub league again, as the stereotypical view is, because it's not part of the top 4 divisions in English football, because there's still some great teams in here that are as big as Wrexham and Notts County. Oldham, they've an ex-Premier League side, an actual Premier League side, not Notts County were the first division side. Oldham were actually a Premier League side. Southend, yes, God forbid, you know, the worst comes to the worst, and they obviously and no longer exist. But they're another side that have been as high as the Championship in the past. There's a lot of big sides, and even below us in the likes of Scunthorpe, Hereford, Chester, Torquay, Yeovil, some very big sides in this division, in the part of Vanarama. And I just hope that it just keeps getting respected, which obviously it deserves. Zach said, great show, mate. See you Saturday. You certainly will. Ethan has said, Luke, did Manny have a 3-match ban? Did he serve 2 or 3 at Halifax? Served 2, so you'll have 1. He won't be able to play the first game, actually, for you, just thinking about that. I don't believe anyway. So, yeah, he won't be able to play the first match for you. And then we've had Luke, look out for Mancini for Pools. Absolutely. Is he that French guy? I think he is, yeah. I know he's just signed. And then we've had being a great show. Thank you both. Thank you, George, for tuning in once again. Great show. Cheers, Tom. Thanks and good luck to your clubs. Thank you very much. And then Hayden's actually said, at least Wrexham out of this league, that's the main point. Well, I see it as a certain reason, as there's more opportunities now for other clubs to get promoted. Now Wrexham and Notts are gone. But there's also a lot of negatives to losing 2 big clubs like that as well. Hopefully the legacy sees an extra promotion spot. That's the main thing. I'd agree with you on that. That's what we need. We need to keep pushing it, not just because Wrexham and Notts have gone. That don't mean it should quieten down on that. We need to keep pushing it, keep promoting it, and hopefully one day that does change. And then we've had I think new watchers of the National League brought by Wrexham have realised that it's a great league with great fans who make football enjoyable. Absolutely, there's some exceptional fan bases in this division. Chesterfield, that playoff game, it were goosebumps, the atmosphere. Oldham fans, brilliant. Southend fans, aware that they're 150 odd supporters going down, to clean the stadium up ahead of Oldham's match. Just shows you what non-league is about. And yeah, like you mentioned, it deserves a lot of respect. And then we've had Ethan's coming again. Yeah, he's that French guy on the show again. Middlesbrough at Sunderland. And then we've had final one. We've just signed note. We've been talking about it. That brings the podcast to a close. Paul, once again, thank you very much for joining me for the opening game week. Anything you'd like to add?
No. I mean, good luck to all your teams out there. Thanks for listening, guys. Tell your other fellow supporters, your fan bases. It'd be great to grow the pod over the next few weeks and months. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be talking about National League. We'll see next week how we get on with the predictions, Luke, because we need that early lead so that I haven't got to wear that Barnet shirt.
Yeah, well, I'm not wearing a Rochdale shirt, so let's hit that. So I can't lose these predictions, to be honest. But yeah, thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Thank you for commenting. Also, I know that the majority of people who actually watch the podcast can never watch it live. So if you're watching this as a podcast, get in the comment section below and leave your predictions below, any topics for next week, anything at all. And if you want to privately message me, you can privately message me on the social medias. All the links are there as well. So yeah, once again, thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now. There we go.